Hello, everyone. Good evening. Let me center it a bit. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I believe you can use the chat window. Good evening, Vijesh, Krishna. Good evening. Good evening, Sanchi. Good evening, Bandita. Good evening, Kritika. Good evening, Soumya. Good evening, Aman. Okay. Good to have you all in this session today. I'm pretty feeling very relaxed at the moment. So I've thought about a lot of things that I can talk about, but I'm not really sure how this is going to flow. So, so yeah, I'm starting with a canvas here. So depending upon how we interact, how interaction goes, it may flow in one direction or the other direction. Irrespective, I hope and to a large extent expect that the session turns out to be useful to you. I believe all of you are probably preparing for the GMAT and facing some or the other psychological issues, so that we call the emotional aspect. So I asked you to sort of register for this webinar, and while registering, many of you shared your sort of what you're going through in the comments. So 3 themes stood out. Of course, there were, I think, different people are facing different kinds of problems, but 3 common themes came out. One was self-doubt, shared by a lot of people. Fear of failure, always having this what if, or will I ever be able to get a good score on the GMAT, which is quite related to self-doubt. And I'm going to ask you a question as we get started. And then there was a feeling of being overwhelmed, that, okay, there is so much to do. So essentially, you get overwhelmed, that many of you are managing your family lives, your professional lives. Probably some of you are also doing something beyond your office. And then this GMAT stuff. And then when you look at all the content out there and all the different kinds of pieces of advice, it becomes overwhelming. Okay, what should I do? And then you don't end up doing anything. And that feeling of overwhelming, being overwhelmed, sort of continues. So I'm not sure exactly what proportion of time I'm going to devote to each of these. But yeah, I'm going to limit myself to just these 3. Of course, it may end up, if you're facing some other issue, if you end up getting help by the session, that's going to be coincidental. But generally, my focus will be on these 3 areas. Okay, so before I get started, let me start with talking about fear of failure. So many of us have this fear of continuous sense of fear that, okay, irrespective of how much I prepare, I may still not achieve my target score, right? So why is that? Let's say if you're not able to achieve your target score, then what happens? Okay, Okay, let me write things down. So what we are fearing is that our basically we are fearing an adverse situation, which a situation which we are calling adverse, right? So that, let's say I don't get my target score. Now let's say I don't get my target score, then what happens? What is the biggest consequence of this? Uh, you can share in the chat window, or let me launch a poll also. If you want to share in the poll anonymously, you can do that also. If you don't get your target score, in which big way is it going to impact your life? You don't get your target score, then how does that impact? Think about it. Okay, of course, that is the immediate impact. You don't get your target B school. Then what? How does that impact? Why are you so afraid of that? So the journey that I have my plan for my life won't be fulfilled. This will lead to dissatisfaction and a constant feeling of irritation. Okay. So what you had planned? So why you have planned your life this way, Krishna? Why do you think, why is B school a part of your plan? Things may not fall as per my plan from professional and personal perspective. Right. Deciding an MBA was a thought through decision. Now it may not happen. Right. But why did you decide to do your MBA? Okay, somehow I am not able to see the polls responses unless I close the polls. I'll have to close the poll to see the responses. I'm going to close the poll shortly to improve the standard of living. Okay, thank you, Krishna, for being honest. Uh, my standard of living may not improve, right? Okay, what else? This is one big consequence of not getting your target score. You may stagnate in your career. So career stagnation, let's say, or let's say limited growth possible. Okay, what else? What else? Judgment bias in my family. So somebody wrote, there's a judgment bias in my family. Okay, so probably your family may not sort of consider you worthy enough. I'm not sure who wrote this judgment bias, but okay, guys, don't annotate. won't be able to get into B school, future job opportunities, say don't like my current job, won't end up doing what we are doing currently. GMAT is an exit route. Okay, so I don't like what I'm doing currently. So I may have to continue to do what I may remain stuck in something that I don't like. Fourth is, Asha is saying, yeah, intellectual growth, let's say. Intellectual or whatever, overall personality growth, let's say. These things may become impacted or may not happen. Okay. Move to the US. MBA is the best route to get to the US. Okay. So why do you want to move to the US? MBA reasons, crash, career growth, role package. Okay. I feel unsettled in my head because I'm trying to get through my GMAT score. Okay. Okay. And there could be other personal reasons also. But let's talk about these, some of these. So one is that your standard of living may not improve. That is one of the concerns, right? And the second is, I think, career limited growth in your career. Okay. So I'm going to approach it in multiple ways. Okay. So let me first approach it in terms of, let's say, let me start with thought emotion framework. Okay, according to this, our emotions are a direct consequence, or yeah, that's the right way, direct consequence of our thoughts. Okay, so your emotions, let's say fear, irritation, any emotion, okay, demotivation or whatever emotion you have, it's a consequence of your thought. Okay, so when you look at a situation, so right now you're preparing for the GMAT. Okay, so right now you're preparing for the GMAT. So right now your thoughts could be focused on preparing, which is that you're focusing on, let's say, question solving or learning and all that. Okay, or your thoughts could be focused on what happens, or basically what happens if I get this score. So you dream of your MBA, going to the US, achieving so much in your life, whatever. What if it doesn't happen? Right? At this time, you could be thinking about any of these three things with respect to, let's say, your GMAT, your MBA journey. You could be focusing on preparing, learning. You could be focusing on thinking about, oh, what if this happens, what all what all good is going to happen in my life. Or you could be focused on thinking about what if it doesn't happen. These three thoughts are possible, right? Now, think about it. Let's say if you are thinking about what if I get this score, what kind of emotions will you feel if you are focused on that situation? What kind of emotions will you feel? Positive, happy, relief, overall positive emotions, right? Happiness, joy, relief, satisfied, content, and all that, victory, victorious. Okay. When you are focused on preparing, you just focus on learning. What kind of emotions will you feel? When you're focused on preparing, you're solving the question, you're learning, you're figuring out things. You're making progress towards your target score, if you're thinking that way. Curious, if you are engaged with the questions, gaining confidence, right? Confidence going up. So sometimes stuck. Okay, so let's say you're not able to solve a question, then you're trying to figure it out, right? But if you're focused on learning, will you have negativity within? If you're focused on learning, preparing, will you have negativity? Not thinking about the end goal, focused on preparing. Yes, no, you will still have negativity when you're preparing. You need to be focused on preparing. You're not focused on the outcome right now. Talking about where your focus is. You could be preparing while thinking about the outcome. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your focus. Focus is on preparing. You're thinking about preparing, learning, growing. What kind of emotions are these? Negative emotions? What about others? Generally, if you're focused on preparing, your thoughts are about preparing, then there is no negativity. You're curious, you're engaged, you're figuring out things. There is a sort of, it's like playing chess. There is a challenge you're trying to overcome. It's a continuous sense of engagement. There is negativity in it. So, okay, that is my opinion, that there is no negativity when you are focused on preparing. Okay, this is a call that I'll take. Now, if you are focused on this, if this is what you are thinking about, then you're filled with negativity, right? Essentially, what you are thinking about, what you are focused on, is what is determining your emotions. If you are continuously feeling afraid, fearful, so many emotions people go through, essentially you're right now focused on it not happening. Do you agree with that? Let me ask you in the poll. If you are feeling fear, if you are feeling afraid, feeling negative, essentially you're focused on the target score not happening. Okay, ending the poll. I would encourage you to participate. Whatever you think, even if you disagree, that's also fine. Okay, so these are the results. Not that people who are disagreeing are wrong and all that. Okay, I have, of course, these are not the things which are really covered in the normal education system or something we regularly talk about. These are the things I've thought about for a long time, and my thoughts have also changed over a period of time. So it's perfectly fine if you have opinions different from my opinions, but still I'll be presenting my opinions. Okay. Um, so according to me, essentially when you're feeling those negative emotions, you're focused on this of it not happening. You could focus on the other two also. Okay, it is possible, right? Do you have a choice? At least, is it possible to focus on the other two also? Okay, I don't have a yes no poll. I should probably have it. Okay, so it's possible for you to focus on any of these three. Possible. How easy, how difficult, that's a different discussion. It's possible. But right now, what's happening is you are spending a lot of time thinking about this. What if it doesn't happen? Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. Now, if you think about it, thinking about what if it happens and what if it doesn't happen, both of these, do they really contribute towards your score? Do they really help you in achieving your goal? Okay, how does time spent on these two things help you? Let's say you're right now thinking about, okay, what's going to happen if I get my target score? How is that helping you reach your target score? Right. So it will help you motivate. It will keep you motivated. So basically, it will help you focus on preparing. Right? If you're motivated, then you will focus on preparing. Motivation is for preparation. And the second, people say, what if it doesn't happen? The fear is also helpful because if I'm afraid, I'm really going to work at it. So then you're also going to focus on preparing. So whatever advantage thinking about these two things is that to some extent they may help you focus on preparing. But essentially what's going to help you get to your target score is focusing on the preparing part. Okay. And when you're focusing on preparing, then there is no negativity. The reason you feel a lot of negativity when you think about GMAT, when you think about preparing, is that you are constantly thinking about not meeting your target score or failing at it. Okay, you're constantly thinking about not hitting your target score. Sometimes thinking about third option. Yeah, of course, that's also another advantage of it. If you completely, you can of course think of dropping GMAT altogether. Okay, so now if we understand that this is, I'm not sure why this is happening. Let me clear my screen. Let me share my screen once again, sorry. Okay. So what's going to happen, what's going to help you is focusing on preparation. That's the only thing that's going to help you. Of course, thinking about what happens if I get the score, what if happens if I don't get the score, may help you spend more time focusing on preparing. But a lot of times you may have already realized, and partly that could be the reason you are here, is that if a lot of times when you're spending your time here, what if it doesn't happen? You don't have energy and motivation left to actually focus on preparing. Okay, so now probably we can agree that focusing on it doesn't happen, what if it doesn't happen, is not very useful. Not helpful at all. Actually, this can be extremely counterproductive, as you might have already felt, that we end up spending hours and days thinking about what if it doesn't happen and not really preparing. Right? Now, why does this happen? If this is so counterproductive, why are we doing it? And thinking about failure. Why do we continuously think about failure? Okay, one is our mind works like that, which is right. Habituated to thinking, if I may use the word negative. We are just habituated to thinking negative. Okay, this is, then of course, if all of us are habituated to it, we start calling it the natural thing, or this is how mind works. Okay, but I would like to call it, this is more of a habit that we have cultivated over a period of time. We're just now habituated to thinking negative. Okay, that we constantly think about what if it doesn't happen, what if it doesn't happen. Okay, by continuously rehearsing for that worst circumstance, we think we are going to limit the impact of that failure when it so happens. ओके, हमें लग रहा है कि बार 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 सोचने से when it happens we'll probably be not as badly impacted as we would otherwise be if we have not even thought of it. So we are trying to reduce the impact of the failure in some way. Another reason is our worth is at stake. Okay, I'm going to talk about this. Okay, so I've disabled the chat for now. So I'll just speak for a few minutes and then we may sort of discuss it. One big reason that we constantly think about failure is we think if we fail, somehow we will not remain as worthy as we would like to be. Okay. And the big reason why we think, so there are two reasons and talk about it. If we look at society, how it measures success or how it measures worth, it's based on relative. It's all relative. Relative what? Wealth, career success. It's all relative. Okay. So if you are succeeding more than others, then yeah, you are there. If you're succeeding less than others, even though you are succeeding, but not there. And then there is a physical beauty. Okay, there could be other relative parameters, but these are the ways our society has come to sort of define a person's worth. Okay, that how is he or she wealthy in terms of respect to others. So if you go to a rich society and you're not wealthy enough, people may look at you in a different way. But if you go to a not so rich society and suddenly you are more wealthy than others, then you may be looked upon in a different way. Career success, physical beauty. So this is a, let's say, a predominant paradigm in the society that many people measure worth of others in terms of how they are in terms of relative sense. So now when we think about GMAT or when we think about failing, like not getting our target score, not getting to our target B school, remaining stuck in our jobs, one of the aspects is that our worth is at stake. Now, if your worth is at stake, naturally it's a threatening situation to be in. It's not just about GMAT or B school anymore. It's more like a life-threatening situation we are in. And that's why some of us have panic attacks. Actually, some of us go through periods of depression, so on and so forth, depending upon how extreme it is with you. But I think one of the big reasons is that our worth is at stake. Okay, so now here I'm going to talk about one of the big ideas that I wanted to share with you. Something I've read and I've tried to sort of see in my life also. When others find us let's say unworthy, it's painful. I think you guys will agree. But my question is, why is it painful? When others find us unworthy, it's painful. feel a lot of pain, and essentially a major part of our lives we are spending, majority of our energy is getting spent on trying to avoid the situation in which people find us unworthy of respect, unworthy of love, unworthy of affection, whether it could be the society at large, or it could be our friends, it could be our family members. But my question is, when others find us unworthy, why is it painful? Why do you think it's painful? Let me launch the poll. You may take a couple of minutes to answer. Okay, another 15 seconds. Okay, about to end the poll now. Okay, so let me read the answers. So it's painful because we have attached a sort of value to how society thinks and dictates rather than use our mind to move further at our own caliber and profession. So we have attached a sort of value to what society thinks. Okay, it's actually the other way around. People around me think I'm worthy and but successful. It is creating a lot of external pressure. It is creating a lot of external pressure because people find you worthy. But why are you under pressure? You're under pressure, I believe, because they consider you worthy, but they may find out you are actually unworthy after some time. Isn't that the pressure? It's painful because it has our own expectations, which has been confirmed by others. We value success, worthiness of my family, how my family, friends, relatives see me. They make us feel worthy of respect from how much success I have achieved in life. We let our worth decided by others might be because of external validation. Okay. Another is we are used to relate our worth with what others think of us. Somehow I've defined my worthiness. Wow. So Some of you have already mentioned, but I'm going to talk about. So this is my idea, what I've studied, what I've learned, and I've also seen it to some extent in my life as I've tried to live my life and take certain decisions. So the reason we find it painful is when others reject us, we feel pain, hurt, but there is an intermediate step. When others reject us and we feel pain, hurt, rejection, and all that, there is an intermediate step. So, as some of you were mentioning, we get influenced by others. So, when they reject us, we reject ourselves. When they consider us unworthy, we consider ourselves unworthy. When they withdraw their love for us, we also withdraw our respect, our love for ourselves. And this is what hurts us. This is what pains us. It is not another's rejection. It is our own rejection that hurts us. Self-rejection, that is what causes pain, hurt, and all the negativity. Of course, the external situations, for example, others rejecting us, can act as trigger. Okay, they can trigger self-rejection, but do they necessarily have to lead to self-rejection? So that is an idea that I have been thinking for a long period of time. And to an extent, this is what I have learned. And now to some extent, I've started to feel in my life. It is not compulsory. It is not compulsory for us to reject ourselves when others reject us, to consider ourselves unworthy when others consider us unworthy. It is possible to love ourselves. I'm talking what ourselves mean. Or let's say it is possible to love myself, to respect myself unconditionally. Others may choose to put conditions on what it takes to respect me. Okay, they may have certain condition. Okay, if you meet certain criteria, then I'm going to love you, I'm going to respect you, and all that. But it is possible for us to love ourselves, to respect ourselves unconditionally. And if that possibility is realized, if this link is broken, then it is possible that others reject us, but we don't feel pain, hurt. Because within ourselves, we have accepted ourselves unconditionally. There are 4 kinds of relations, 4 levels of relation we can have with ourselves. Let me use first person so that we is not confused with plural version. I can have with myself. And this is also the relation that you can have with others. But one is horrible. For even small mistakes or shortcomings, I reject myself. This is one level of relationship I can have with myself. Then there is a next level. Let me see what I wrote. Moderate hostility. Okay, it's a hostile relation. Moderately hostile relation. I need some reasonable shortcomings to reject myself. So इतना आसानी से I don't मतलब बहुत छोटे reason से I don't reject myself. But if you give me some reasonable reason, then I'll reject myself. I'll consider myself unworthy. And then there is a quite accepting relationship. And of course, these are the relationships you can have with others also. But here I'm talking about my relationship with myself. Quite accepting means I really need big reasons to reject myself. Okay. I'm not easily going to reject myself. I'm going to be really patient with myself. I'm going to have compassion with myself. Okay, if I commit some decent shortcomings or small mistakes, I come across my small shortcomings, I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to be loving with myself. I'm going to tackle those shortcomings. Okay, it's not that in any of these I'm not even tackling. I'm going to tackle those shortcomings, but I'll not reject myself. Okay, when I'm quite accepting. I think I'm somewhere here. And then there is unconditional acceptance. Where I don't reject myself at all. I see my shortcomings. I accept my shortcomings. I work on my shortcomings, but I don't reject. Okay, I still continue to respect, love myself as a person who is a work in progress, will continue to evolve. But why does that person need to be rejected? Need to be considered unworthy? Now, I believe we are very afraid, or let's say, let me talk in first person. The reason I could be so afraid of failure or even come across my small little shortcomings is that probably I don't have a very good relationship with myself. If I have a very healthy relationship, if I'm quite accepting, or the ideal thing, unconditional acceptance, but if I'm, let's say, quite accepting, then I'm not going to run away from my shortcomings. I'll see them, I'll work on them, but I'll not run away. The reason I run away is because I'm afraid to accept that I have this shortcoming. Because the moment I accept the shortcoming, I reject myself. So this is one of the big ideas that I want to leave you with. I'm not sure that this was what you were expecting. But I believe that this is one of the big reasons we are so afraid of failure, that our worth is at stake. And the reason our worth is at stake is that, there are others who are not going to behave with us or consider us not so, who are going to consider us not so worthy if we don't achieve certain kinds of heights. And thus, in order to sort of have their acceptance, even though it's a very conditional acceptance, right? That sort of continuously requires us to work hard to just get that acceptance. We are constantly afraid of failure because we are afraid, oh, if I don't achieve this, I'm not going to have that acceptance. I'm not going to be considered worthy. And if they don't consider me worthy, then am I really worthy? Then this gets triggered. So this is something that I have been dealing in my life for many years now, actually. I've been coming across these ideas, but slowly, gradually, probably 1%, 2%, now I'm starting to see that it's possible to implement this concept in my life. And I have been very sort of afraid of public speaking. And the reason I believe is simply that if I speak publicly, people don't like me, they're going to reject me, then I'm going to reject myself. Because if they consider me unworthy, then I'm going to consider myself unworthy. But if I remove somehow, now that awareness is there, that there is an intermediate link, that awareness itself is a relief. That the things are not outside my control. I'm not at that level that I am unconditionally accepting of myself. I'm habituated to rejecting myself at the slightest reason. But there is a hope. I have now hope in my life that it is possible to not reject myself when people around me reject me. When that happens, your worth is not at stake. If that happens. Now, if your worth is not at stake, failure is not life-threatening. Right? Think about it. If your worth is not at stake, failure is not life-threatening. You may fail. There may be other consequences, but it's not going to be life-threatening. Or, right? It's almost life-threatening for some people, probably many of us. When it is not, the failure is not something that you so dislike. If failure is not something that you strongly dislike, you will realize you will not think about failure much. This is what I have learned, and this is what, to some extent, I have seen in my life. So these are the ideas that I'm giving you. Probably some of these ideas may sound ridiculous to you, or may sound very wise to you. I don't know. But these are the ideas which have started working for me. Okay, I'll not say have worked for me. I'm still probably 1-2% there, but I'm seeing the effects. Uh, for example, and this is something happening currently with me, and this is what I consider success in a way. I'm right now, I'm a GMAT coach. Probably you are all of you are aware. But right now I'm transitioning, or I'm thinking to transition into uh, what I call character coaching. Character coaching is about GMAT coaching is about teaching GMAT. Character coaching is about helping people build character. So that's a field that I want to get into, and hopefully I'm getting into. I'm working towards it. Now I'm already doing decently enough in my GMAT field, but now I'm trying to reduce my time spent in the GMAT field and trying to increase time that I'm spending on in the domain of character coaching. So I also have a fear. I also have self-doubt that I may not end up achieving anything. Okay, I may end up spending a lot of time, still not get anywhere. All of those thoughts come. Okay, I'm not an evolved creature. I'm also a work in progress. So all of those thoughts come. But right now, that fear of failure, or I don't think much about failure these days. Why? Why don't I think much about failure? Because I don't dislike failure as much. Why don't I dislike failure as much? Because I I wrote a post recently on gobi ka fool versus gulab ka fool, the rose flower versus a cauliflower. So I always visualize that I'm okay being a cauliflower. I'm okay being a gobi ka fool. I'll not reject myself even if I just remain a gobi ka fool. When I say gobi ka fool, I'm talking about, of course, in the domain of this GMAT preparation, I'm probably slightly above gobi ka fool, but in when I'm entering a new field, there is always a scope, and that's also the fear with you, that you're doing something new, and there is always a scope of failure. Of course, probably the stakes are much higher for you and all that. I don't mean to sort of equate my situation with your situation, but I think the basic concept can still work. The reason you constantly think about failure is you strongly dislike it. There is a lot of emotion involved. Okay, if you think about it, only when there are emotions involved, you will think about something. If there are a lot of positive emotions involved, then also you'll think about it. If there are a lot of negative emotions involved, then also you'll think a lot about it. The reason you're constantly thinking about failure is that you strongly dislike it. There are strong negative emotions attached to it. You don't want it to happen, right? Because there are strong negative emotions attached to it, and that's why you don't want it to happen. Now, another idea that I would leave you with is this strong dislike, or this strong desire to not have it is actually making it happen in a way. The time that you're thinking about it not happening, it happening, not happening, happening, not happening, and the reason you're constantly drained of energy is your main focus is on not happening. Think about it. If you're thinking about happening, naturally you're positive. You're but constantly thinking about failure, it not happening, and you are drained. And now, since you are drained, you don't have time and energy left to actually do something to get to your target score. So that's making it happen. So this is something I call a self-sabotaging behavior. The thing is to recognize it, that this is what is happening. Now, how to get out of it? Okay. What is not going to help you is that you start cursing yourself or engaging in self-sabotaging behavior. This is what people do. They realize that, okay, they have spent a lot of time thinking about what if it doesn't happen and all that. And now CJ comes in and says, oh, you're engaging in self-sabotaging behavior. And then you start beating yourself for engaging in self-sabotaging behavior, not realizing that that is also self-sabotaging. If you beat yourself up, you're not making it more likely that you will prepare. You are rather draining yourself even more. It's a vicious circle you are in. The way out of the vicious circle is self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion. That you just completely accept yourself, be compassionate with yourself. I'm not asking you to be compassionate with your neighbor, with your colleague. और किसी के साथ नहीं, अपने साथ हो जाओ. Just be compassionate with yourself that, okay, whatever has happened has happened. It's all fine. I'm still fine. Choose to accept. Choose to love yourself. Choose to be compassionate with yourself. The problem outside itself is challenging enough, right? The problem is challenging. You have to ace that. This thing called GMAT. It requires a lot of commitment, a lot of time and all that. The situation is challenging. Now you don't increase the challenge by not being compassionate with yourself. Now you need a lot of compassion. Okay, this is the time that you really need a lot of compassion. So give yourself that. If you do give yourself a little more compassion that you are already giving yourself, at least you will not get into that cycle. Okay, you waste your time, then you beat yourself for wasting your time, then you are so drained out, no time left. Okay, once you have wasted your time, be compassionate and start working. Secondly, so this is one idea. Another thing is sort of cultivate a more healthy relationship with yourself. If that happens, your worth may cease to remain at stake. If that happens, the fear of failure may go down. If that happens, you're going to think less of failing. If that happens, you'll have much more time to actually prepare and succeed. Okay, so these are the thoughts I would like to leave you with. I'm not sure how much of it made sense. But now we have some time. If you have any questions, you want to discuss anything, let me. If you want to talk, then I can allow you to unmute yourself. You can raise your hand, or if you want to type out in the chat window, you can type out in the chat window. One thing before you ask anything, I'm not going to tackle here any GMAT related doubts, GMAT concept related doubts. Okay, this is with respect to the psychological aspect. So limit your doubts to that.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. So my query was actually, a kind of psychological barrier when it comes to like you have given one attempt, you did not get your score what you needed or what you dreamt of. Then how do you overcome that barrier? Because there are a lot of negative feelings, negative thoughts when you already have not been able to reach something after preparing for a while. So how does one address that and come out, with a fresh mind and prepare once again?
Okay, so you're saying that you have already attempted GMAT once, you have not succeeded. So
Yeah.
now you're not able to prepare. Is that what you're saying? Because you're
Yeah,
constantly thinking of failing the next time also.
yeah, it brings a lot of pressure, unconsciously. And the areas which which were most dreadful, still I'm not able to get out of that because of that subconscious pressure that is there in my mind.
So what is the pressure?
The pressure is of failing once again, not addressing the core problems, the core areas where I failed. And those were the same areas where I put in the maximum of my efforts during the preparation. So it seems like even if I do, even if I put more of efforts in this areas where I put it also in the last attempt, I think that no, I'll still fail again.
Okay, so there is a failure of failing again, and then you are saying that you are doing the same thing. So how is it going to lead to success? So you're
Yeah,
not sure of the process.
yeah.
You're not sure of your
So it's
process. Seek alternatives. So to talk to experts or read forums or take a new course. These are the
hmm,
alternatives you have. No.
hmm, hmm. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It feels like, when you have to go through that error log of the same areas again and again, it feels like a kind of suffocating, that,
Okay. Let's talk about it. That's okay. First of all, thank you for sharing so openly. Right. It's suffocating. Uh, the word suffocating. You're not getting enough oxygen. Life threatening. Right. So, no. So these are the emotions we feel. Of course, it's not may not be to that extreme, but it feels going in that direction
yeah.
essentially. So let's think about it. So why? Because let's say I make you completely fine for some reason by some way with failing the second time. Let's okay. By some way I
Okay.
make it. Then would you still feel the same while preparing now?
No.
Okay, so it's originating essentially because you're afraid of failure, right?
Yeah.
And you're not afraid of failure because you may still do the sensible things, right? You may still seek out expert help, or you may still read forums and see what has worked for others and all that, right? For
Yeah.
example, even if you're not afraid of a lot of things, you still do sensible things, right? So that part is done. Now we are saying that if you are not afraid of failure, then you're not going to feel suffocated while going through this, all of this, what you're going through error log or even researching. When you're researching, also
Mm.
there is a back of the mind happening, ki kya hoga, right?
Right.
So, uh, so what problem do you have with failing the second time?
It comes with a kind of back end stuff not related with GMAT. I appeared for CAT also twice, before that. So it's like, that you are preparing for exams, complete exams again and again, year after year, and it kinds of puts you, a kind of baggage on your shoulders or on your head. So it stems basically from something which is not related to GMAT, but yeah, it's a kind of stuff related to the exams that you face. So that fear comes from there.
You have sort of attempted other exams also and you have not succeeded. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yes,
So,
correct.
so now if you fail at this, then what happens?
It seems like that if I fail this, once again, I'll have to again go through the entire process of preparing for that exam, and all the professional plans, all the other plans of life, will have to be again shifted by a year or some other months, and when you keep on continuously pushing the boundaries, or when you keep on continuously advancing the plans, because you're not able to succeed for any exam, be it CAT or GMAT, it becomes, kind of, baggage, you don't feel that you are able to, come out of it.
So there are two different directions. One is that since you have failed earlier, now there is a lot of baggage that you don't want to see failure once again.
Yeah.
And then there is that if you fail, then there's going to be a change in your plan. That also something you don't like. These two are different things. Let's say if I
Yes.
remove one, the other will still be there, right?
Yeah.
If I remove all the package, still you will have resistance to changing your plans,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Right. So let's talk about one of these. Let's talk about the baggage. So what is this baggage? मतलब क्या baggage है मतलब? What exactly is that? Have you sort of sit with it sometime?
Yeah, for preparing for those exams, I put in a lot of things at stake. I put a lot of other sacrifices, in the last years. So when you forego something, and when you put off a lot of stuff, for preparing for an exam, and you don't get it, that baggage comes with you, that, oh, you're not able to get something even after putting so many hours or so many years, or any time frame.
Is it a feeling of incapable, being incapable?
Y- Yeah, yeah. And also there is a kind of peer pressure, or social pressure, that people are looking up to you, that, oh, you have been preparing for so long, now you need to,
People also
uh,
consider you incapable then.
yeah, yeah,
Essentially, it's a feeling of being incapable.
right.
So uh, let's say somebody's child is incapable of doing XYZ. How should that parent respond to the child? Let's say he's incapable. Mm, okay, of course, one thing you can suggest is, okay, keep trying and all that, or try this, try that. Let's say he's incapable of. Then how should the parent respond?
If the incapability is stems from some kind of attitude or psychological bias, it needs to be addressed. But if a person characteristics, or it is something inherently which is he or she is incapable, then it's time to move on, I would say.
Move on means what?
To focus, to shift the focus to somewhere else, to some other platform, or to some other
How
things in
should
life.
the parent, let's say, treat that child? That's my question. In terms of the
Okay,
relationship with that child.
we are obviously taking more care, giving more amount of time, and taking more
Should the parent
response.
stop loving the child? Stop
No,
respecting
never,
the child?
never.
So do you think your respect or your acceptance of your own self goes down when you fail or when you start feeling incapable?
No, it should not.
No, it should not. But does it go down?
Yeah, based on my current mindset, it has gone down a bit. I would agree with it.
Okay. So my understanding is the reason the baggage exists is because somehow you are tying your respect, your love for yourself, your relationship with yourself on the things that you're achieving.
Yes.
Okay, so now it turns out that one failure, you try, कि कोई बात नहीं, I'll try again. Two failure, three failure, four failures. Then you feel that, okay, I'm just incapable. Okay, I'm incapable of achieving one thing in life. So
Hmm.
is
Right.
it possible to release that self judgment? Okay, release that self judgment. कोई बात नहीं. You can, one thing is, there is another aspect to it. One thing is कि let's say नहीं हो सकता. Okay, उसकी judgment है. Second aspect is, if you think about it, you are still trying. You can choose to be proud of yourself also. Right? कि 4 failure हो
True.
चुके हैं, fifth time still I'm trying. Wow. Right? And you can make that as the motto of your life. भैया जो भी है, I'm not going to reject myself because I'm always trying. It is
Right.
not going to solve everything, but it is, I believe, it's going to solve a big part of your baggage.
Correct.
Okay, now it's not going to also come over a period of days. We are habituated, I believe, to rejecting ourselves, and this is what I've experienced with myself also. Okay, a lot of it, what I'm sharing, has of course come from whatever I've read, but also has come from my own personal experiences. That, for example, at the end of the session, I'm going to ask for feedback. Whenever I ask for feedback, there is a constant fear. What if somebody gives a very bad feedback? Why? Matlab, now I think about these things. It's But if I dissociate my worth with what feedback I'm getting, feedback aaya, okay, critical feedback, good to know. What can I improve on? I can also respond in that way. But why do I become negative? Because somehow I'm defining my worth by that feedback, by how people are measuring me. Okay, now I don't like that. So I have two responses: to run away from feedback, which a lot of us do. You don't like critical feedback at all. Other is to voluntarily react to the other person. तेरे को कुछ नहीं आता, तेरे को मेरे idea समझ नहीं आए. So what can I do? Right?
Right.
But
True.
essentially, we have because the experience is painful for us. So now we are trying to somehow deal with that pain, either voluntarily or trying to run away from it. My point is, the experience of receiving critical feedback may not be painful if I don't define my worth in terms of my current self. कि अच्छा कितनी कैपेबिलिटी है, कितना मुझे आता है. ऐसे कि यार आई एम रिस्पेक्टफुल, आई एम वर्दी, आई लव माई सेल्फ. यार दुनिया भाड़ में जाए, आई एम गोइंग टू लव माई सेल्फ. इफ आई हैव दैट रिलेशनशिप विद माई सेल्फ, देन आई नॉट बी अफ्रेड. ये बताओ यार मुझे क्या क्या कमी है. अच्छा तो मैं बिल्कुल बेवकूफ लगता हूँ, मैं कोई बात नहीं, मुझे तो अपने आप को बहुत बढ़िया. That is a relationship I think I can cultivate myself. I'll not be afraid of receiving critical feedback or even failing. Because जैसे मैं बोल रहा था, I've been always afraid of public speaking. This is not public speaking. This is normal for me, but sort of standing on a stage and all that. So I think this is one of the reasons, because I see if people end up rejecting me, तो मेरा क्या होगा? मेरा क्या होगा? Because I am also going to reject myself.
True. Yeah.
I'm not sure how much that is helpful.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. So there are a couple of raised hands. I'm going to address them. But in any case, if some of you want to leave, can leave. But before you leave, please share your feedback about this session. Okay. 1 second.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I am taking GMAT exam under a deadline. So
Okay.
I have cleared the round 1, and for round 2, I have to submit my GMAT score by the end of August. So I have that pressure on how to prepare within the set deadline.
Right.
So how should I deal with that?
Deal with what? You just
The
prepare.
pressure of preparing in such a deadline, because I have started 2 weeks back, and
Right.
I think I'm going at a good pace. But still, when I'm listening to others that they've been preparing for so long and still, they've not reached their target score. So it makes me think that what if I am not able to reach my target score within the deadline?
Right. So, so there is, so again, you are also thinking of whatever doesn't happen, right?
Right.
Right. So is that helping you in some way?
But if I completely don't acknowledge the part that if I think that it'll be just fine.
Correct. So then probably you're not going to give your best. Is that what you're saying?
I think if I keep thinking that मतलब हो जाएगा, मतलब if I keep preparing और वो deadline का ना सोच के, if I just keep preparing, तो I would miss out the deadline or I would get a little late, or end में ज़्यादा pressure हो जाएगा. So something of that sort.
Right. So every 3 days you should remind yourself that there is a deadline, right? So that if there are any course corrections you need to make, you can make those course corrections. So do you right now think every 3 days for, let's say, 10 minutes about what if it doesn't happen?
I think of it every day. Matlab, whenever I start studying for it, I
Right.
prepare myself that I have a deadline for it.
So the normal frequency should be 10 minutes every 3 days. That's going to help you. Okay. That every 3
Okay.
days you take an assessment that, okay, where am I going? Is it going in the right direction? It could be every 3 days, every 7 days, depending upon, but let's make it more frequent. 3 days. Every 3 days you try to assess, okay, this is what I've covered in the last 3 days. And okay, this is, so probably do I need to adjust my plans or do I need to devote more time? If yes, how do I make arrangements and all that? So it makes sense. It's going to help you. But right now, for a lot of people, it's happening 1 hour or probably 2 hours every day.
Right.
Right? So हो क्या रहा है कि 1-2 घंटे ही होते हैं preparation के, that you spend thinking about what if it doesn't happen.
Right.
For example, if you're going from Delhi to Amritsar, मेरे को अमृतसर बहुत पसंद है. So you're going from Delhi to Amritsar. Now you talk to various people, which road to take, which one is going to be more comfortable, faster, fewer tolls and all that. So you decide to take a particular road. But right now what you do is you keep wondering, is this the right road? Will it lead to Amritsar? So you stop every 100 meters and keep asking people going around. Okay, jati hai kya Amritsar ye? Every 100 meters you stop and ask, when are you going to reach Amritsar? It makes sense to ask, to really first take a proper assessment and then probably keep a look on the milestones and all that. Probably ask, let's say after every 50-100 kilometers, ki haan, sahi ja rahe hain, right? Or probably just look at the milestones. If I'm learning, must be going in the right direction. But what's happening is you're stopping every 100 meters and you start asking, and you just don't ask, you confirm also. And you spend a great deal of time thinking about कि अगर ये road ना जाती Amritsar तो क्या होगा मेरा. That is not helpful. You need a pinch of salt to make things better for you, whatever you are eating. Right now you have a fistful of salt. बहुत ज़्यादा fair है, बहुत ज़्यादा you are thinking about it, which is not helpful. Actually, it's counterproductive. It's harming your health. It's also decreasing your chances of achieving the success. Now, how? So again, one of the reasons you constantly think is, first of all, one thing you can do is, if you think that you're constantly comparing, then don't just read forums and all that. Just focus on the content that you're learning. Okay, so there are two aspects. One is we can make ourselves stronger. हमें चीजों से फर्क ना पड़े. But if we are not at that stage, we should accept ourselves. Okay, एक होता है कि we find ourselves, for example, अगर मैं बोलूँ तो मेरे को लगता है कि नहीं, I can't handle that criticism. So yeah, I should really build my capability that I can handle that criticism. That's fine. I should work on that. Makes sense for me. It's a personal goal for me. But till the time I cannot handle that, I don't need to expose myself to that kind of criticism. Right? Yeah. If somebody is not behaving nicely to me, I know that if somebody is not behaving nicely to me, that reflects his or her character, not my character, not who I am. So he can continue to behave rudely to me. That's a level I want to be at. But if I'm not at that level, it makes sense to have a distance from that person.
Right.
So one thing is, even if there are a lot of distractions around you, you are able to work on the thing that you want to work on. That's a good capability to have. But till the time you are there, remove the distractions.
Yes, sir. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Seem to be done. Okay then, everybody. Thank you for attending the webinar and staying so far. Thank you. Great interacting with you. Take care. Hopefully this webinar was helpful to some extent. Take care. Bye-bye. Good night.